Good evening and welcome to Greater Somerville for September 27, 2011. I'm Joe Lynch.
And I'm Cayenne Anderson.
And I'm Alderman at Large, Dennis Sullivan.
There you go. Our guest tonight is a four-term Alderman at Large, Dennis Sullivan. Running for re-election this year in November, he is a former member of the Somerville School Committee, has served as Board of Aldermen President, and now serves on multiple Board of Aldermen committees. An employee of the State Department of Corrections, he and his wife make their home in the 10 Hills district of Somerville. It is our pleasure to welcome back a frequent guest here on Greater Somerville, Alderman at Large, Dennis Sullivan. And welcome back.
Welcome to the show.
It's no stranger.
It's a pleasure to be here.
To see you.
And I want to point out that I watch the show all the time. And Cayenne, I was thinking about it tonight, coming here, that you're the only Cayenne that I know. So
really?
You're definitely one of a kind, unique. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
And talk to the residents of Somerville.
I had to stop calling her Pepper because she was getting annoyed with me calling
That's
her
the
Pepper.
first time I've ever heard that, Joe. I've never heard that before. Why do I say we all look quite nice tonight? It's ironic. I never really say this, but I say we are coordinated quite nicely.
Tried.
Joe must have sent out a memo at everyone where...
we totally tried tonight. We tried to look good for the viewing public.
Well, we need to look good for Dennis.
It just worked out that way.
That's right. So Dennis is running again for re-election, Alderman at Large, and as we mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, that we will be having many, many candidates between now and the end of October. Alderman Connolly has been on, Alderman Bill White has been on, Alderman Sullivan. Candidate Sean Fitzgerald, candidate Michael Neonakis.
It's a busy time.
It's a busy time. General election is November 8th.
Correct.
November 8th, Tuesday, November 8th. If you have not registered to vote yet in the city of Somerville in the municipal elections, please do so. Look at the city's website. It will tell you what the deadline is.
The deadline, folks, is 20 days prior to the election day. So whatever the date that is, 20 days prior.
October
So do it
something.
now.
So, but do it now.
Yes.
And the city of Somerville makes it very, very easy for you to register to vote. Contact the elections department either through the website or in person, and they'll mail you out the application.
Correct.
Most famously known for those sidewalk office hours.
You know, I'm very proud of the outreach that we've conducted. I've actually have seen Cayenne up on
Yes.
Highland Ave at Dunkin'
Yes.
Donuts
There you
a
go.
couple of times.
Highland Cafe.
Highland
When you
Cafe.
first started, my encounter with you was in front of Kelly's in Ball Square.
Correct.
Yep.
And people say they only see their elected official during an election. But the office hours run year-round. We do them in the spring, the fall, and in the winter. There are various locations. Dunkin' Donuts are a popular location, but we hit every ward. And also in the winter, we've been known to do office hours at the Star Market Produce Center. You would not believe the amount of people in the cross-section that you see at Star Market, but also we do them at the library, different libraries on the weekends during the winter. So very proud of that. Tip O'Neill said, you know, it may sound when somebody calls you up for a simple thing like a pothole or something going on the street that, you know, it doesn't sound too important, but for that person to go out of their way and to call you, it is. And I treat it like it's important, and I call the appropriate department to get that situation rectified. So I'm very proud of my constituent services.
Now, you try to do that two times in each ward every year, is that true?
2 times in each ward, and in the wintertime, sometime around St. Patrick's Day, we'll go inside.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and the other members of the Senior Services Committee, you found a brilliant way of reaching out to the seniors. You take your committee meetings directly to them. You don't hold them in City Hall. You take them to the seniors.
Correct. And I can't take all the credit for that. When Chairman White was the president of the board several years ago, he instituted a senior service committee. He thought it was important that we deal with those issues, and he took it one step further, and he held the meetings across the city in different senior buildings. So we try to hit every senior complex at least once a year. There's approximately 12 in the city, and where there is an issue, sometimes that will dictate where we go. But recently, we were at Faulkner Towers up on Highland Ave, and we're at Cape and Court in Ward 7 in the VNA. So usually we have a meeting. We'll invite department heads such as the traffic and parking director. The Council on Aging director will get an update, and then we'll have an open forum to hear from residents.
Well, you know, I think a lot of the folks that I talk to across the city appreciate that because it's really, it encapsulates customer service in politics. It's the customer service and the convenience of bringing government to them, rather than trucking up to City Hall and, the mayhem that
Right.
sometimes involves in committee meetings in the hallway. But I think it's a great idea.
Correct. And
Tell us what they're saying, though.
Well, you never know what you're going to get during the office hours, or what you're going to get at a senior service committee at a building. And most recently at Faulkner Towers, people are concerned about the budget, what's going to be cut going forward.
Yeah.
I think people have accepted the fiscal reality that we're in. I know when I talk to some people that are a lot older than me, they say it's not a recession. Like, if you want to see a recession, they talk about years and
Right,
years ago.
sure.
But these are definitely the worst times that I've seen, from a financial standpoint, for people that, approach you at the office hours. They're talking about people out of work. They're talking about, I've gotten more requests for public housing. When I first got on the board 8 years ago, people would call up. I would make the appropriate call to the Housing Authority, to the towers up in Ward 7.
Sure.
And you could facilitate a person getting in the housing. It wasn't that much of a waiting list. But now it's tremendous, the waiting list.
Really?
People, a cross-section, people that are very successful years ago, they're either unemployed or they're underemployed. So I'm getting a lot of requests for housing, and the number one thing, jobs, and jobs. People want to work, so
Sure.
there's just not enough jobs right now available. So it's just a reality that we're dealing with, and hopefully we can get that going. And some of we're talking about an Orange Line stop that's going to happen at Assembly Square, and I want to point out, I'm very proud, people talked about the $25 million bond that we floated, and there's going to be some talk about that in this campaign. But the Orange Line stop, it's the first Orange Line stop that's going to be built in Greater Boston in the last 25
No,
years.
I heard
Can you name
that.
it? I mean, that is great. And I think...
And it's the first rapid transit stop built in Somerville in over
Oh.
25 or
Yeah.
28 years.
Definitely. And I think that'll be an economic engine for the city, to get people to work, to get
Right.
them home. I think it'll be great. It'll make our streets a little more uncongested,
Right.
so...
But
I just want to interject
Sure.
real quick, just to remind the callers at home. Feel free to call in if you have any questions for Alderman Sullivan, 617-628-9876. So,
yeah, Alderman Sullivan.
Lines are open.
Alderman Sullivan is not afraid to take your question.
Right. And I may not have the answer, and if I don't, I will track it down and get back to you, but I'll do my best.
We've had, we read, Kyan and I keep our ear to the ground in terms of, and there was controversy about that $25 million bond, because on one side, we understood what the administration was saying, and what the alderman was saying was that, look, times are tough, we've got to contribute here, but the opposite side of the argument was, but we're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar company, Federal Realty, who is developing Assembly Square. Why are we being asked to pony up $25 million?
It's an excellent question. And when I looked at it, some of the federal money was not there when it came due. When it came time to have that station, the federal money was not there.
And it was the city who was applying for that
right.
federal money.
And at the end of the day, as an alderman at large, what I looked at, did I believe an Orange Line stop would come if we did not pony up this money?
Right.
If we did not have skin in the game, would the Orange Line stop happen to unlock that site for future generations? And at the end of the day, it was a tough vote. It's not a vote that we took easy. We had meetings, we had public hearings, we studied it from a lot of different aspects, and we came up with an educated decision, and I stand by it. I believe in it. I think it's going to be great, and I think now more than ever, we need that development to get us going. And our state funding, our state, the monies we get from the state for our budget, that's waning over time. So it's up to us to increase our commercial tax base, and that was my intent with that vote, and I think it was the right vote.
there's a lot of things. I mean, things are going on down there. There's progress. I haven't been down there
We're
in a while.
starting to see the roadways take shape. We're starting to see some of the landscaping take shape. I'm not quite sure if people realize that when you have X number of acres of land that has to be redeveloped, it doesn't happen overnight.
A lot of the first phase of the development is the sewerage, making sure the sewer lines
all
are
the
in place.
Glamorous stuff.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
that's the
People
stuff
are always-
everybody wants to see.
But you need to get that right.
Yeah. Right.
And that's what's happening now. And IKEA is delayed, obviously. I think it's
Yes.
another victim of the economic climate. Their indication is they are going to be coming here.
What's your gut feel?
My gut feeling is, as an alderman, I want them to come here to be the anchor store for that site. But you know how business goes, Joe. You're in the business
Sure.
community.
Sure.
You're doing something. You're coming here until you're not.
Right.
So,
Right.
I
And
know they're going to...
typically, let me just add, typically the people that are meeting with the mayor, meeting with, folks at development in City Hall, they are not the CEO. It's
Right.
not the CEO of Federal Realty. It's not the CEO of IKEA. Those are the managers who are here to gather information. The city is giving them information. They go back, and if that CEO looks at it and says, you know what? I understand that we have invested $1 million plus in permits and all the rest of it, but it's just not going to pay off. If that CEO says, pull the plug, it's done.
Right, and I would contend with the orange light stop coming,
Yeah.
that the land that they have, that they own,
Yeah.
is increasing in value.
Yeah.
So even if they did forego that $1 million, that $1 million would be gone
Yep.
if they did not build. That their land they're still going to turn a profit if
That's
it
right.
comes to that. And I hope it doesn't. I don't have any information to state that,
Right.
but their land is going to be increased in value given the infrastructure.
We
that's
hope
coming.
it does. We hope it does come, but we have to be realistic that, the promises that are made by corporations can be undone like that.
So talking about promises, I want to ask a question. Now that we know that IKEA may or may not come, I'm hoping it does personally because I have to drive to Stoughton every time. That being said, what about Walmart? Let's discuss that, because when I read that article, and I know that, is that a done deal? I mean, what is going on there? Because part of me thinks, how would those two, IKEA, Walmart, there's a certain...
Set it up for us a little
Yeah,
bit.
like
The old
what's-
Circuit City site at Assembly Square
Right by Home
is
Depot.
being eyed
Right,
by
no, absolutely
Walmart
right.
to put in a supermarket.
Right, I actually am
But
quite familiar with that, with the news
Okay.
reporters calling.
Yes.
I've had a Herald reporter call, a Globe, the Journal,
Yeah.
and they want to. It's not the typical Walmart that you would, a major big Walmart. It's
Right.
not a big Walmart.
It's not
gonna
a
be small-
superstore.
Right, it's going
Right.
to be a food store. I don't have the exact square footage, but it's
Okay.
nowhere near what you see down in Walpole
Right.
with hundreds of thousands of square feet. I have concerns about, I read the paper, the recent Supreme Court case that went forward where they did not treat their female employees
Okay.
Yeah.
appropriately.
I read that.
I have huge concerns how they treat their
That's
work.
one of the issues that's surrounding them coming to the city, is their employment practices.
Right, but as the chairman of License and Permits, I think they deserve a fair hearing. These are tough economic times. If we can get a supermarket with fresh produce at a good price, and quite frankly, some jobs. I'm not saying I'm for it, but let's give them a fair hearing. Let's let them make their case, and that's my stand on
And is
it.
that, what are they, I'm sorry to interrupt you, when is that going on? Like, what, is that
Well,
scheduled in the next couple of months, or is that
Excellent
even?
point. They have not even requested any permitting
have.
yet.
Oh, they have not,
Right, no.
okay, sorry, I didn't.
I went for the Greater Boston Labor Council endorsement, and this
Okay.
was a topic of discussion in Dorchester that
Yeah.
night. And according to the Greater Boston Labor Council, some of the unions, that they have struck some deals with unions to retrofit the place, to make
Okay.
it a supermarket. So, that was good to hear. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think they're moving in the right direction, but there has been no
application.
No application yet.
Right, right. So let me ask you this. Competition, in my mind, competition is always healthy because it creates an environment where you have merchants competing for business. You have multiple merchants coming into the city. The mayors and the Board of Aldermen have always said, we want new development coming in. There seems to be a little bit of backlash going against the mayor and saying, who are you to select what businesses can come into the city and what can't? And I think the person who was saying this to me is, the famous Olive Garden statement that the mayor made over his dead body. Would there be an Olive Garden down at Assembly Square? So, but here's the question that I asked this person who was asking me: if Walmart supermarkets comes into Somerville, what does that do to the smaller
Yeah,
markets?
independently owned
The
markets.
independently owned, like a Johnny's. Johnny's is independently owned. They've been a staple here in West Somerville for years. Does that wipe them out when we say goodbye to
Right,
Johnny's?
no, that's a good point. I think
That's
that's
a
something we
concern.
have to look at.
Right.
You look at the vacant style market
Yeah.
on Broadway.
Yeah.
That's zoned for a supermarket.
Trader Joe's.
30,000 square feet, and there are a lot of. I want to give Walter Pirro a lot of credit. He had community meetings around that.
Yes.
It's zoned for a supermarket. and they wanted to put an Ocean State job lot, which he would have needed a variance for. And the administration, the alderman, the community had serious concerns. The owner, Mr. Cohen, mentioned that he did approach a Trader Joe's, but for whatever reason, I guess the market was not the right market.
Was it because it was too small? Because one of the things I had heard that property has not been able to be subdivided, or the owner will not allow for subdivisions. And I know that Trader Joe's didn't need that big of a footprint.
Right.
Is that true?
You know, I'm not sure. I mean, I think
Okay.
they probably could have. If you look at the one in Cambridge, and my wife loves Trader Joe's, but from what I heard, that they were not interested because it just didn't meet their market requirements.
They look at the demographics.
Social, economic, you know,
That's
you
right.
have
That's
the
exactly.
Housing Authority, Mr.
Yeah.
Gav, not too
Yes.
far away, and
Okay.
for whatever reason, that's what I was told.
Okay,
That's what
so
came out
it's
of the
not about
news.
necessarily the same.
No, when a market comes in or any business comes in, they look at the demographics that surround that
Correct.
site. They know how many people are within walking distance, how many people are within driving distance,
Right.
and they look at the income of
Ocean
the
State
people.
job lot, when they came, the person they had presenting their presentation, he spelled Somerville in the PowerPoint, Summerville. And I'll
That's
tell
gonna
you,
get you a lot of support.
that's a mistake you never want to make
Yeah,
when you're doing
right.
a presentation in a different city.
Oh my
In
goodness.
any
Right,
business.
Right, and they let them have it that
Wow.
night.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's go on to a couple of things. You mentioned endorsements. Congratulations. You did receive an endorsement from a political organization here in the city, the Progressive Democrats of Somerville. Other endorsements you mentioned?
It's been a very busy campaign season. The Progressive Democrats of Somerville, for the second year in a row, I have received the endorsement. I'm honored to have that. Also, the Greater Boston Labor Council, recently, Somerville Police Patrolmen's Union, and the Sierra Club, in addition to the MBTA Commons Union.
Good.
So I'm very happy. Sierra Club was the first time, after 8 years of applying as Alderman at Large, finally Sierra Club, they did come through. I think the single stream recycling program we're undertaking
great.
in the city
Very
is a big
excited
part of
about
that.
that.
And also, the schools, not too long ago, we partnered with Honeywell to reduce our energy costs in the schools. So
It
I
was
think
a big retrofit of the school buildings.
Right, and
Yes.
we're moving in the right direction. Our recycling percentage in the city, I think, is below the state average, but I think the single stream will help. And I think a big part of that is we have people that are very transient in certain sections of the city. Somerville is a very attractive place. In Ward 1, you have Sullivan Station in walking distance, but I think when you have a transient population, they don't read the recycling program or,
Yeah.
you know, so I think that we have to do a better job in the city.
Spreading the word.
Spreading the word, educating, and especially in different languages, and we're attempting to do that. And I have every confidence in a year from now, we'll be on the state level or above it.
So let's go back, take one step back, Dennis. You were talking about what you're hearing on the street from people. I know that traffic and parking is still an irksome subject that you guys get hit with all the time. So it's traffic and parking, the delivery of city services. If you were to give a grade to DPW in the types of services that they're delivering, snow plowing, street sweeping, maintenance of our buildings, landscaping, our parks, give them a grade.
I definitely think A+. You know, my wife lives in Medford. I drive through Medford. The contrast is incredible. Cambridge has a lot more money to the DPW, but I think Somerville.
You said your wife lives in Medford.
In Medford,
No, your
no.
wife lives
Frank,
with you.
I was just going to say, I didn't want to say anything.
I said-
Maybe that's
Folks, I
an
caught
interesting
it.
arrangement.
I caught
No,
it.
you just
I
chose to
stand
point it
corrected.
out. I
My
just
wife,
kind of
my
nodded.
wife
but
grew
yeah.
up in Medford. We spend a lot of time visiting her parents. And
They've got a summer home in Medford.
I see.
You heard it here first, folks.
I see the contrast, especially in the snow plowing. They do a great job. We have a DPW commissioner that grew up in the city. I think he knows the city. He knows how to get the job done, and I think he does a great job, quite frankly. A+ with the DPW
Yep.
and such.
Yep. I would say we don't grade
a loaded
city
question.
services here, but I would tell you that the addition of 311 in
Yes.
this city has made all the difference
I
in
agree.
the world on how the city actually delivers the services. Because if you're calling on a Friday afternoon and nobody's answering the phone at DPW because they don't work on Friday afternoons,
Right.
you got a problem.
Definitely.
And it affects your perception of how the services are being delivered.
Definitely.
So I think 311, kudos to the mayor, kudos to the folks who run 311.
Right, and I want to point out, if you read the book by Rudy Giuliani, a Republican
Yeah.
in leadership,
Yeah.
he had city stat, a CompStat in
Right.
New York. He was actually the first one to have that kind of fact-based information to make decisions
Sure.
on running the city.
Sure.
Baltimore, Maryland, Mayor O'Malley, now the governor. He had a phase of it, a different take on it, and now Mayor Curtatone has done a great job with that, and I agree. We're a lot small. We're a very small city compared to the other two municipalities,
Yeah.
but I think that we have retrofitted that system to make it work for us.
It gets back to your point of just being accessible. I think that's one of the things that I love about your mobile office hours is that it's just a very accessible. 311 is accessible. You're accessible. You feel like you're just one phone call away from getting that pothole taken care of, and I think that is just something. It's just very comforting as a long-term member of the Somerville society.
So we've
You've
given
gone-
kudos. No, we've given kudos to the mayor. We've given kudos to the Board of Aldermen.
It's a big love
And
fest.
this is why they call it the hot seat. Where are we falling down? What types of things do you hear from the folks that you're canvassing? You're out there during re-election, and it's not all sweetness and
No,
spice.
absolutely
They're
not.
telling you the city is absolutely abysmal at doing.
Well, I hear a lot of complaints about traffic and parking.
Okay.
And people think that the ticketing is
Oh.
over the top.
Just
Yep.
got one last week.
And I do hear that, but you definitely need enforcement in a 4 square mile city that 80,000 probably swells to over 100,000 people when school's in session with Tufts University, MIT,
Yeah.
Harvard. So you need to have that enforcement, but I
Mm-hmm.
think there can be some judgment on the parking control officers. When he's handing out those tickets, but people want their streets cleaned. They want.
You bet.
I think I know last time we talked, and Cayenne brought up she'd like to see a later start time
Yes.
for ticketing on street sweeping,
Yes.
and go a little later. So instead of starting at 8 o'clock,
Go 9.
start at 9, and,
9.
and maybe let it go till 3, because people don't come home until after that.
Yeah.
Well, all you're doing is moving it by 1 hour.
Right.
So
I just got a
started at
street
9,
sweepings
ended
ticket
at 1.
2 days ago. So
And how
it's
much
very
was it?
topical. $50.
It stings, doesn't it?
It does sting. Now, here's what I would say, though.
I just
Tickets.
say remember to move your car.
Okay, well, just because you have a rock star parking in front of your house, Joe.
Well,
what
no,
I would
and
say.
you have all those wonderful electronic devices that you're always telling me to get. Why don't you subscribe to the city that
Okay.
says,
All right.
here's your
we
alert?
haven't seen each other for a couple of weeks, so
Would you-
clearly we're not getting along. But
Can
what I
you
would say,
imagine?
no, here's what I would say. I think parking tickets are a problem, but when you park illegally, I mean, like, I knew it was street sweeping and I messed up. What I think more people that I hear say are the 8 p.m. meters and how that impacts businesses, especially, say, in Magoon Square, the smaller squares
Yeah.
where going there and having to pump the meter. And that's, I think, an overall issue. I know we got to get the money somehow, but that's, I think, a bigger issue than I know I park illegally, I get a ticket.
Oh,
Even
and
though
I would
it's,
agree with
you
that.
know.
We had a parking solution task force, which I was a member of. And
great.
Greg Coughlin, who owns
Old Magoons?
Old Magoon Saloon, people from the Magoon Square area were very involved. Robert Gregory from Red Bones was involved.
Yep.
And we try to come up with some solutions.
Yep.
Some of them were taken, and some of them were not.
Right.
Okay.
But as far as how I play the
Well, let me
how I play the street sweeping, I have one person on my street, and it's Mr. Pinto. He's been in the city a long time, and you can set your watch by him. So if he's on the side, you want to be on the same side as
should do
Mr.
that.
Pinto.
That's a
So
good
I would
idea.
suggest everybody
Pick the
that
neighbors that
person
have been
out.
there for
That's
50
right.
years.
That's
That's
right.
I just have one comment because I've been listening to the issues that everyone says are the major issues, which is parking. Well, I have to take a step back when it comes to Magoon Square because I look at Magoon and I compare it to Ball and I compare it to Teal. I never try to compare Magoon Square to Union or to Davis. Those are just not in the same league. So I look at Ball Square and I look at Teal Square. Neither of them have a municipal parking lot. So they're more
Right.
getting hurt. And both of those squares have had consistent on-street metered parking. Magoon Square hasn't had meters for well over 16 months.
Correct.
So there might be a little twist there in terms of the merchants who complain about the parking issues in Magoon Square. You got free parking on the street for 16 months, and you have a municipal parking lot. The other two smaller squares
Don't have that.
don't have that. So there might be another problem going on up
Okay.
there.
Right. No,
You heard it from
That's
Joe.
my assessment. So go ahead. I'm sorry, Alderman Sullivan. You
Got a
were
couple
moving
more.
Well,
ahead
that's a
with...
good
wanna
point,
make
but
sure
you did mention the biggest issue facing the city.
Yeah.
Without, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Green Line, the proposed delay in the Green Line extension.
Yep.
I hear that a lot all the time. The city is working with the Conservation Law Foundation to look at every legal remedy. The problem with that is if you go down that road, you could end up tying it up longer
That's right.
in court
That's
than the delay would be.
That's right.
So I think,
It's a risk.
we're looking at it. Every alderman, they have testified, at the transportation committees that have happened at City Hall, that have happened in Boston, that have happened at the State House. Everybody's on board. It seems Medford is not as unified in their acceptance or wanting of the
That's
Green
right.
Line, but we're kind of driving the train. We're talking about it right now at the board level, and we're going to, come up with another another game plan. But we definitely want the Green Line. I have not heard one person in Somerville not want it. But when you go to Medford, just over in 16, it's a different kind of
There
ballgame.
are two
Right.
camps. There
Definitely.
are two distinct camps in Medford. Some say absolutely not, let it stop at Tufts University.
Right.
There is another group that is fighting for it to go all the way to Route 16. As you know, I did write my article, and I am still in support of the city of Somerville suing to get the Green Line back on track.
Right.
Because my feeling, Alderman Sullivan, is that's the only language they're going to understand. And if we have to go it alone, we go it alone. And I'd rather take that risk
Right.
at this point than wait another 12 to 14 years.
Right.
Because they're saying 2020. In reality, they'll slip again.
Right, and I think we have a governor that is sympathetic to our plight with the Green Line. So I think right
He's
now...
sympathetic, but
But I think now would be the best time to work with the administration, hopefully get certain milestones or, certain accomplishments. Like when is that set of track going to be laid and work that way? I mean, I'd like to have it done all at once, but I think we have to do what we can. I just fear going to court, and I'm not against going to court. I just fear that might delay it even further.
Now, we have a couple minutes here. I just want to make sure that Dennis gets a chance to say what
Sure.
he needs to say and talk about
sure.
the election. Well, I mean...
You want to wait? Dennis, the camera is yours. Make your pitch to the voters of Somerville, and we're going to see you next month anyway.
That's right.
That's
We have a
right.
big debate.
Okay.
Voters of Somerville, we have a very important election coming up November 8th. Most people see the Board of Aldermen 2 times a week on the second and fourth Thursday. And that's not the case. We're out 3 and 4 nights a week, whether it be at a subcommittee meeting or oftentimes before the zoning board or planning board. I'm very proud of my tenure in the last 8 years on the Board of Aldermen. I've stood up at zoning boards and at planning boards to protect neighborhoods from developers that are just trying to make a quick dollar using shoehorn zoning. I want to continue that hard work, and I'd ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Couple upcoming events. The Honk Festival is this weekend, so everybody get out. It kicks off at Johnny D's on Friday, September 30th. Oh, yes, September 30th at 10 o'clock. And the Topsfield Fair, which isn't in Somerville, but, it's all weekend. I like to support that. And one more thing, the Somerville Oktoberfest, that's going to be going on Sunday, October 2nd at 12 p.m., starting at the Burn, and it's going to conclude the Honk Festival weekend. And we recommend everybody go out and have some Oktoberfest beer.
Somerville.
And that's it.
Somerville is the place to be, and Greater Somerville is the show to watch. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our guest has been Alderman at Large Dennis Sullivan for Greater Somerville.
As always, stay safe.
Stay safe and stay informed.
Good night,
Good night,
Good night.
everybody.